Hello and welcome to the Classical Guitar LPs podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Powell. This episode will mark the beginning of the 5th season of the podcast. We sincerely thank you for joining us. The record we'll be listening to today will be simply entitled Segovia. It's a recording on the Decca Gold label, DL710112. My information tells me that this is a repressing from 1967. We're going to be hearing music by Tansman and Mompou and another composer by the name of Maria de Valera. We'll be right back. And we're back. Thanks for joining us on the Classical Guitar LPs podcast. I wanted to give a very sincere thank you to a gentleman by the name of Paul Sachs from Ames, Iowa. Paul, thanks so much for contributing both by giving me this LP, the Segovia LP that we're listening to today, and also by being a monthly subscriber to the show on Anchor. If you or someone you know might be interested in contributing to the Classical Guitar LPs podcast, you can find out more information by going to anchor.fm/powellguitar, and there are links that you can click that will help with support on that end. So thanks again, Paul. We really enjoyed this record. I really enjoy the whole process of sifting through these recordings and doing the diligence and looking up some of the information if I need some assistance with that. And this record has absolutely fit the bill to a T. What I wanted to go ahead and let you all know to start with is that I've upgraded some equipment. I did change a stylus on my turntable, and so I went with the Newmark CC1. It's a DJ caliber stylus, and so it's got a little bit better handling. You know, you can really reach it, and it sits a little easier. I feel a lot less uneasy about changing the sides when I need to. I have a lot more control with the hand, and so anyway, you would think that somebody who plays classical guitar would not be so clumsy with their fingers when changing a record, but that's not been the case with me. The artwork on the front of this record is absolutely stunning. It's a Vladimir Bobry illustration, and we have sort of a jongleur, a court jester on the right-hand side, and then we have someone a lot more serious and reverent playing on the right side. You wonder if that's sort of Segovia's humor about the pieces that are on this recording. There's some great work on here. What we've got to keep in mind. This is a recording from 1965. Andres Segovia he's getting up there in age at this time. We're a couple of years away from the 1968 film by Christopher Nupin, which really highlights him as a 75-year-old performer. That's done in 1968. So this is 3 years prior to that, and it's Segovia's playing. I would say it's essentially a really similar snapshot. So if you wanted to see Segovia in action with video and that sort of a thing, I would highly recommend looking that up. It's called Segovia at Los Olivos. And what I would say is it's a very, it's a glimpse into Segovia's playing with visual aids roughly at about the same time. So for this recording, we do go back just a couple of years. It's from 1965. As I said in the intro, my pressing is from 1967, but the actual recording was done 2 years prior. This is on the Decca record label, and we start off with a great composer, Alexandre Tansman, the suite in modo Polonico. Now, one curious thing about this, as I looked at this, I talked to you about the mystery here and all that. This piece was originally written in 1962. Now, when I say that, it is everything except for movement 7, the mazurka. So what's going on? Modo Polonico, these are Polish dance pieces that are being composed on the guitar by Tansman, a Polish composer. And so we have 10 movements. We've got a Bromley, a Galliard. Now, of course, Galliard, you're going to hear in a lot of different suites, going back even to the Renaissance dance suites, but certainly they're incorporated in Baroque suites as well. Kujowiak, Polonaise, Kolinaska, number 1, Mazurka. Now, when we get to Mazurka, that piece was actually not written in 1962. It was written much prior to that, but Segovia included it in this version. Then we have the 7th movement is the Reverie, the 8th movement alla Polaka, the 9th movement Kolisanka number 2, and then we finish with with the Oberek. And so these are beautiful pieces. I think Tansman's composition style is just it's beautiful. I sit there and I listen. Oh my goodness, how did you do that? How did you create these melodies? How did you create the harmonies? How did you do all that and put it there? And it's just so neat. And so so in any case, the mazurka was written for Segovia in the 1920s, and as I had said, it's sort of put in there. I can find versions of this score which don't have the mazurka involved, and then I find one later, actually published a couple of years later in 1968 with it in there. So in any case, we've got some wonderful music to get started with on the first side. I do have to apologize. In the first and second band, there's some scratches going on, and there's one I just kind of can't get over, so we're gonna hear some of those darn record pops and clicks and some cuts, and so I will do my best to edit those out of there so that we can concentrate on the music. Absolutely beautiful stuff. Let's listen to what Tansman himself says about the music. This suite, Tansman continues, is inspired by the ancient court dances of Poland. Some of them, the Galliard, the Branley, have counterparts elsewhere in Europe. Others are typically Polish, the Polonaise, the mazurka. The subject has been treated in a language which seems to me most suited for a work based on national or traditional forms. That is, I have avoided any voluntary stylization or modernization which, if adapted to the pure melodic lines, the popular harmonic style and rhythmic meters, would result in something artificial and hybrid. What better to hear the composer's own words on that? So enjoy. This is side one of Andres Segovia, or rather I should say Segovia, and it's the music of Alexandre Tansman to start off the first side. Enjoy. And we're back on the Classical Guitar LPs podcast. What a wonderful first side to this record album. The Suite Compostelana is a piece written in 1964 by Federico Mompou. Federico Mompou is a very well-known Spanish composer from the day, sort of in the avant-garde, known for writing opera, known for writing some keyboard works as well. We don't have a lot of guitar output from Mompou, but this certainly is a staple of the repertory, and what a great example it is. Written for Andres Segovia, of course, in 1964. And so when we hear this recording, I think I think what I garner from it is I hear the wisdom, I hear the sage quality of what's being played, of what's being brought across. That's not to say that I don't enjoy recordings of this work by some more nimble fingers. Keep in mind, in 1965, when this recording was made, Andres Segovia is 72 years old. So, my goodness, I hope I'm playing like that when I'm 72. So I'm not trying to knock Andres Segovia's playing. I'm just simply saying that it is perhaps, just keep in mind this is the recording of a 72-year-old maestro on the guitar. We can hear some other performers, like I say, playing with more nimble fingers and maybe a little bit more heightened expression. Some that come to mind are always Christopher Parkening, and I certainly appreciate Julian Bream's interpretation of this work as well. And of course, there are loads of other players who have just made wonderful interpretations of this piece. But had it not been for Segovia, this piece may not have been written. It was, after all, dedicated to him. So the piece is a musical tribute to the city Santiago de Compostela, which is a cathedral city in northwest Spain, and it sounds like from reading these liner notes that Segovia would gather there in the summers to teach and perform, and so it just makes an awful lot of sense for this to be done by these two people: Spaniard composer Mompou, Spanish guitarist Andres Segovia, and so. What happens here, this liner note is such a great quote. I'm just going to go ahead and tell you exactly what Shirley Fleming writes in her liner notes about this. The Preludio is principally an essay in what might be described as classic guitar figuration, which gives way to an interlude of rhapsodic wandering among distant harmonies. Couldn't have said that better myself if I tried. Figuration is that thing, you hear that a lot in like Vivaldi pieces. It's sort of that rapid sort of pedal tone almost, and then different notes are hit around, and that's just a perfect way to describe the opening movement going on in here. And so we've got Preludio, Choral, Cuna, Recitativo, Canción, and Muñeira, and so just a beautiful suite, the Suite Compostelana. We finish off side 2 with a couple of pieces that I was not familiar with, Maria Esteban de Valera. And they're two miniatures. One is called Nana and the other is called Intermezzo. And these are two contrasting pieces, so enjoy. One technical note, what I wanted to make sure to let everybody know is that I did have to drop the speed down 3.5% to make sure that it was at concert pitch. And so not sure if the recording of the day was recorded fast or slow or what the heck's going on, but to get it with concert pitch, I did have to take it down a couple of notches, 3.5% to be exact. And so again, we hear a couple of clicks and pops on side 2, but overall it's pretty clean. So I invite you to enjoy side 2 of this record, music of Mompou and music of de Valera. Thank you so very much for listening to the Classical Guitar LPs podcast. Please take time and reach out to us on whatever social media platform works best for you. I'm on Facebook at facebook.com/palguitar, Instagram /palguitar, and also twitter.com/palguitar. We would love to hear from you. Let us know where you're listening to. I see the reports on the different breakouts in my host site, and so I know people are listening from all over the world. Would love to hear and to connect on all matters classical guitar regarding to LPs. So enjoy. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.